allergy and asthma, but I also work as a research scientist for Deakin Airwatch. Who here has allergies? No one here has hay fever? That's very yes, we've got a couple of people. Do you guys know that allergies are actually very common in Australia? About 1 in 5 people have reported suffering from allergies. It could be food allergies, or it could be hay fever like with pollen or dust. And usually allergy symptoms can be, sort of frustrating. You get your itchy eyes and your runny nose. But in some cases, hay fever can actually be dangerous to some people. Who here has ever heard of the term thunderstorm asthma? Yes, we've got a couple more people here. Who knows what it is? Not as many people. We've got one person.
Asthma triggered by thunderstorms?
Basically, yeah, that's where you get the term thunderstorm asthma. But more specifically, it's a rare weather event that results in a really high amount of allergens in the air like pollen, and it can cause hay fever sufferers to have asthma attacks, even if they've never been asthmatic in their life. So they are very rare events. So we've only had 26 in the world in the last 40 years. So very rare incidents, nothing to worry about. Unless you live in Melbourne, because 7 of those occurred here in Melbourne. The worst one resulted in over 10,000 people needing to be hospitalised within 24 hours, and unfortunately 10 people passed away from it, which is the first time anyone has ever died from thunderstorm asthma. Luckily, we have researchers that are developing systems to help predict when these thunderstorm asthma events are going to be happening, since this really terrible one in 2016. You would think that when it comes to pollen forecasts, we would have really sophisticated technology to do it. We wouldn't be using something like a vacuum, for example. So we basically use a vacuum to collect pollen. Have you guys ever looked at a pollen forecast online, for instance? If you looked at a pollen forecast, you might not know, but that data is basically collected using a fancy vacuum that scientists like myself will then collect those samples and manually count them for pollen. But those machines take 24 hours to collect those samples, so by the time we actually collect them, they're already a day old, which could lead to numerous issues ranging from inaccurate pollen counts that are sent out to the public to missing thunderstorm asthma events altogether, which could result in avoidable hospitalizations and deaths. So that's where my research comes in. I'm looking at better ways to develop our warning systems to improve the timing, make them more accurate, and I have the solution right here.
Ooh.
Doesn't look like much, does it? But what this is, this little gold disc could become the first real-time sensor for thunderstorm asthma in the world. It sort of works like a mix between a smoke detector and a miniature scale. Alright, don't worry, I'll explain. So we basically transform the surface of this little gold electrode using various chemicals, with the most important being antibodies. Have you guys heard of antibodies before? They're proteins produced by your immune system that specifically match up with other molecules. And what we do is we add antibodies to the surface that match up with the allergens in the air, like pollen, for instance. And if we use allergens for grass pollen, let's say, then we can expose it to the air, and if there's grass pollen, it will attach to the sensor and it will make it heavier, and that sends a signal in real time to a computer that tells us there's pollen. It can not only tell us how much, it not only tells us pollen, it can also tell us how much there is. So we can differentiate in real time between like a low amount versus a high amount. This sensor is not only automatic, it can detect pollen in less than 1 hour, which is not only significantly shorter than our current detection systems, but it could provide an effective real-time warning system for thunderstorm asthma that could help save lives. Thank you.
Once the allergen is once the allergen is attached to the antibody, is there a way to take it off so you can reuse your disc?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the moment, because I'm in the proof of concept phase of the sensor, we're testing what's called an acid wash.
Yeah.
We basically expose the bonds where the antibody is bonding to the allergen to a bunch of acid, and it should hopefully break that bond so then we can continue to reuse it, which will prolong the life of the sensor.
Yeah. So at present, if you couldn't remove that, it's a one-time use sensor? Okay.
But the amount of antibodies on here could still mean that you could use it for days at a time.
Sure, okay. So it's not just a single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well done. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any questions at all, guys? Is anyone here interested in going into science? What, not sure yet?
Not sure.
Not sure yet? Well, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory if you want about my high school experience. I didn't want to go into science originally. My passion was in English literature, classical literature. I was the kind of person that actually enjoyed going to English class, enjoyed reading the books that they assigned you. I wrote stories in my free time, and it wasn't until I got into VCE that I started taking biology and chemistry, and I really started to enjoy those subjects, and I shifted my whole career focus, and then I studied biomedical science at university, and now I'm here.
Amazing. That's so inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No worries. It's amazing you guys are out here and willing to listen to all of this.
Thank you.
No worries.